Welcome back. This presentation will cover sexual harassment, workplace bullying, our complaint procedure, as well as our drug-free and alcohol-free workplace. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, it is our policy to prohibit intentional or unintentional harassment of or against job applicants, contractors, interns, volunteers, or employees by another employee, supervisor, vendor, customer, or third party based on actual or perceived race, color, creed, religion, national origin, ancestry, citizenship status, age, sex, or gender, including pregnancy, childbirth, and pregnancy-related conditions, gender identity or expression, including transgender status, sexual orientation, marital status, military service, and veteran status, physical or mental disability, genetic information, or any other characteristic prohibited by applicable federal, state, and local laws. Such conduct will not be tolerated by Joe Court Enterprises. Furthermore, any retaliation against an individual who has complained about sexual or other harassment or retaliation against individuals for cooperating with an investigation of a harassment complaint is similarly unlawful and will be not be tolerated. Joe Court Enterprises will take every step necessary to prevent and eliminate unlawful harassment. Oh, that was a lot. So in short, all of that means that Joe Court Enterprises and our DBAs are all zero tolerance. We foster a work environment that is free from harassment, whether it be workplace bullying, sexual harassment, and the like, so that you folks can show up and be great. When we get down to the breakout of what unlawful harassment is defined as conduct that has the purpose or effect of creating an intimidating, a hostile, or an offensive work environment, has the purpose or effect of substantially or unreasonably interfering with an individual's work performance or otherwise adversely affects an individual's employment opportunities because of the individual's membership in a protected class. So when that protected class speaks to the race, color, creed, religion, national origin, ancestry, etc., that I mentioned in the last paragraph or so. And sexual harassment is defined as harassment that is unwelcome conduct by others, and generally under both state and federal laws, it includes unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature. So while all forms of harassment are prohibited, special attention should be paid to sexual harassment. Submission to or rejection of such conduct is made either explicitly or implicitly a term or condition of any individual employment or as a basis of a employment decision. Now, when we break that sentence down, what that really means is that you cannot be offered a higher position, denied employment, or have a decision made about your employment that is tied to a sexual favor. For example, if a manager says to an employee, if you have sex with me, I'll promote you to my assistant manager. That's unlawful sexual harassment. For example, if two employees are talking and making jokes of the sexual nature and it's offensive, that is a form of sexual harassment. Other sexually orientated conduct, whether intended or not, that is unwelcome and has the effect of creating a work environment that is hostile, offensive, intimidating, or humiliating to workers, that is also considered or constitutes sexual harassment. While it is not possible to talk through all the forms of sexual harassment, and the circumstances surrounding what could be considered sexual harassment, the following are a few examples of conduct, if unwelcome, that will be considered sexual harassment depending on the totality of the circumstances, as well as the severity of the conduct of the and its pervasiveness. So unwanted sexual advances, whether they involve physical touching or not. So an unwelcome sexual advance could mean that Sally asks John out on a date. John does not want to go out on a date with Sally. Instead of accepting no for an answer, Sally continues to ask John 4, 5, 6, 7 times. That makes it harassment. By Sally continuing to ask John out on a date multiple times, that makes it sexual harassment. So one time, no harm, no foul. When she asks him multiple times, 2, 3, etc., that's when it becomes sexual harassment. Sexual jokes, written or oral references to sexual conduct, gossip regarding one's sexual life, comments about or individual bodies, and individual's body, and comments about an individual's sexual activities, differences, and such is a form of sexual harassment. Now, to break that definition or that statement down further, for example, if two guy employees have a female customer walk in and one of them thinks that this female customer is attractive. So the customer transaction is conducted, the customer leaves the store, the two male employees stand there and make sexual jokes about the customer. Although the customer has left the store, the joke of sexual nature took place while on the clock, creating a sexual harassment situation. Displaying sexually suggestive objects, pictures, or cartoons is a form of sexual harassment. Now, what that statement means is that in today's age, right, we all have our cell phones, and I'm having my cell phone in my hand, and although I'm viewing my personal cell phone and it's a sexual picture on my personal cell phone, I'm in the workplace, I'm on the clock, and my coworker walks behind and catches a glimpse of a naked picture on my phone. Although, again, my personal phone, I'm in the workplace, I'm on the job, I've now harassed my coworker who caught a glimpse of the naked picture on my phone. That is a form of sexual harassment. That breaks that last sentence down. The next form of harassment is unwelcome leering, whistling, brushing up against sexual gestures, or suggestive or insulting comments. Now, that sentence means that we have elevator eyes, Google eyes. We're undressing someone with our eyes, looking someone up and down in a sexual nature. So the person, the receiver of those nasty looks, is now being harassed because you're leering at them. Suppose you accidentally rub up against someone, could be considered sexual harassment. Very common to the culture of Hawaii, when we see one another, we hug. To a brand new person coming to the island who is not accustomed to the aloha hug, it could be deemed sexual harassment if you walk up and hug that person who's not used to being hugged. So be mindful of the receiver of such activities. Another form of harassment is inquiries into one's sexual experiences. So asking questions, having conversations with your coworkers that directly ask them about their sexual experience, sexual nature, etc., is a form of sexual harassment. Discussion on one's sexual activity. So to stand around having a conversation with your coworker about how you had sex with your wife, husband, or whatever the night before is a form of sexual harassment. So much of sexual harassment kind of gets down to you're at work for work production. So kind of keep the foolery out the workplace, basically. All employees should take special note, and it's stated above, and I mentioned it before, that retaliation against any employee who makes a complaint against sexual harassment or any other form of harassment, and retaliation against the individual for assisting in an investigation is a violation of our policy. So in short, and same with general harassment, Joe Enterprises is a zero tolerance workplace. We foster a work environment that's positive, free from harassment, sexual harassment, workplace bullying, so that you folks are able to show up and be great. If we have workplace bullying and sexual harassment and all these inappropriate things happening in the workplace, your guys' sales are at risk, your guys' performance is at risk. So again, we just try to ensure that you guys show up and be great and have obstacles removed. So when we get down to workplace bullying is defined as the repeated health harming mistreatment of one or more people. That includes threats, humiliating or intimidating behaviors, work interference or sabotage, and verbal abuse. So let's break those three categories down. Threatening, humiliating, and intimidating behaviors. Say you're the manager and you have an employee, and you're the employee, right? And your manager, you miscount the cash register 5 different times. And although you have miscounted 5 different times, your manager is yelling and screaming and don't do this no more, and creating a very aggressive, hostile environment. That's a form of workplace bullying. Yes, that's your manager. Yes, you've messed up, but it's all in the approach of how your manager says you continue to make this mistake. Work interference and sabotage. That really gets into messing up someone's work or taking someone's sale or doing something deliberately that causes interference in that person's work, stops that person from making their sale, or causes that person to change the spreadsheet number that makes that person's work wrong. So that's considered workplace bullying. And then lastly, here we have verbal abuse. That kind of piggybacks off of the first example I gave in creating that hostile environment. Verbal abuse comes when, if your manager says you're stupid, or even peer-to-peer, you're at the cash register with your sales associate and two sales associates are there, and one makes a mistake and the other says, oh, you're so stupid. You keep making that same mistake. You're a dummy. That is verbal abuse and workplace harassment, and offense that Joe Core Enterprises does not tolerate. So I've said a couple different times that we foster this great work environment that you all can show up and be great. So in the event that you have someone who creates a hostile work environment where you feel as though you're being bullied, or that you are being harassed by the legal definition of unlawful harassment, or you are being sexually harassed, our complaint procedure is to contact HR. I mentioned that HR@volcanoe6.com email address a couple times in some of the other presentations, but as I wrap up all these videos, I'll provide you with all of my direct contact information, and you will be able to have it at your for your use for all things human resources, including filing a complaint. Now, when we talk about sexual harassment in a little greater detail, I want to get into what happens if your peer, your coworker, is being sexually harassed by someone. I don't want you, again, to play hero. I do want you to feel comfortable or have the responsibility that you not per se stop the attack. You reach out to 911, HR, or someone that is able to fix the problem. And that includes even with workplace bullying or general harassment, not just sexual harassment. If there's things happening out at the retail locations and they are illegal or inappropriate, and your guys you have your manager as your first line of defense, but sometimes if your manager can't solve that, you go ahead and contact your division manager. And sometimes your division manager may not be able to contact or able to solve that. So then you will go ahead and reach out to human resources. If there's like sexual harassment, there's personal things or things that may cause embarrassment within those reports, you are free to eliminate the manager and the district manager and contact HR directly to file your complaint of harassment or sexual harassment or workplace bullying. Okay, drug-free and alcohol-free workplace. It's pretty simple. We're a zero tolerance company. We will do drug tests for our driver positions, pre-employment, and reasonable suspicion throughout employment. Reasonable suspicion means that you show up for work, you're at the register, you are nodding off, someone notices it, they contact human resources. That's the first step with substance abuse. Now, with the other forms of harassment, I said contact your manager, I said contact your division manager. With substance abuse, there's a window of opportunity. Substance abuse, alcohol, drug abuse, if they reek of alcohol, they reek of marijuana, they're standing at the register nodding, there's a window of opportunity for me to do anything. So your very first call or text or email is to HR. HR then will investigate the situation and take the appropriate steps to ensure that we maintain a drug-free and alcohol-free workplace. That concludes this portion of the presentation. I will be back with your next video, or actually I'll have you proceed to the next video, which will be our progressive disciplinary program or approach.